주로도 뭐 다시들이 자작하려 저기 밤에 아무데 소파 전체 담배를 가와야 참아를 다시들이 저기 다시들이
Dashidelek, all my Dharma friends, everyone who has joined the Amitabha recitation retreat online or wherever you are, Dashidelek and good morning to everyone.
인피 로또지는 동당군이 다진이 매와 송고요래 제대로 가시 제통교래 답주 공부하고 나는 내 가르쳐 먹거든 호르 장도 류인 코와지지 다다 레 게데게 레라 제버라지니 다진이 뭐 세늘 다진이 차는들이 때라 로 데리 마치 녀몽 소시 라서들이 데 라나로 잡지는 처럼 잡았다 차요래 저놈을 담으다지 나와서 제가 중앙 담아서 요래 대나기 옛날에 돈다고 되니 돈다고 대방은이 산지습진이 미성 말이 티들 죄송을 거 돈다 대방이 산지 산나되니 나에 매서 제가 돈다고 저 샘내로 코랑 거라 때는 샘다 류기 가까이 다고 그러지 샘다 류기 가가 샘고 당마대 산지이네 들이 따따다 왠런 로아를 강아 레가가 레롱 그 지선 당네 레롱 시바데 랑네 시랍 매와게 유모 이와게 저 샘때 들이 처처는 또봐 이용하지 들이 또봐 나만 나서 지선 날때 쳤다 또봐 차서 빼대다 대회 차서 들이 루트 되게 루트 들이 콜장는 들이 거기 요래지 로아를 소소 콜는 요래 콜는 샘 대시 좀 뭐랑 코가 되면 코는 까봐 또라지로 되나요? 사실 강가면 속바이나 코를 잠데 뺀는 까봐 또도 잡으면 뭐 주면 저거만 붙어는 세서 샘대 찡찡 뭐 코랑지 다자그만 니디그만 가도 다 손콩 똑같아야 요말 샘을 깨셔 매서 도당고지 말 깨셔 매서 뭐 뒤에 땅에 들이가 그것도 좀 제일 좋아하면 바탕지 돈담도 또 많이 있어 돈담을 들이 돈담을 내 맞는 나기 이미 변했으니 코왕님 맞았으면 들이 우리 다 하고 그래들 제일 딩이 좀 저거 다 와서 딩이 좀저 도대 장고 그 뛰고 보고 왔다 가서 뭐는 자고 요리 들이처럼 코가 잡도 늘리고 근데 가래서는 코가 들이로 삼라다나 들이 답조니까 네, 저안 받다가 내좀 달로도 나봐 제거니 들은 거 좋지네다. 답을 주어로 정리를 때 뭐도 그래도 돼. 내록지 제그요. 막 걸어 내록. 다 상지게 내록. 내가 내록 그래야지.
And so the Buddha taught them two truths, the relative truth and the ultimate truth. And on the level of the relative truth, we perceive a duality of self and other. And as long as we perceive it that way, bodhicitta and an altruistic mind are most important. And on the ultimate level, the ultimate truth is that self and other do not exist. There's no separation. And some have some doubts about the discrepancy between the relative and the ultimate. And so in the Gongchik, Jigten Sumgun says, it is the body that circles in samsara. So it is as a result of one's virtues and non-virtues activities and the fundamental grasping at self and other in the mind that we create this body. So it is the manifestation of our different afflictive emotions. So due to that, the mind has become like an ice block floating in water. And then there are many different kinds of ice blocks. Some are larger, some are smaller, and so on. And on the ultimate level, it is taught that Buddhas and sentient beings do not exist separately. But often people have doubts about this discrepancy or kind of contradiction between the two truths. And Thich Nhat also said that on the level of Buddhahood, the two truths do not exist. So for that, to understand that, we have to look at the mind and separate the body from the mind. And the pure essence of the mind, that is the Buddha. But then, because the mind is afflicted by the 6 afflictive emotions, it follows the karmic winds. It is under the power of the afflictive emotions and lacks any awareness. So even though the mind is actually like pure water, it temporarily has become polluted water. And there's all kinds of different forms of polluted water again. And that is what has created this body that wanders anywhere in the 6 realms of samsara. However, Buddha nature doesn't wander. Even if you spend 1,000 aeons in samsara, Buddha nature remains as it is. In the Ganges Mahamudra prayer, it says, "The darkness of 1,000 aeons is dispelled by a single lamp flame." So whenever these obscurations of dualistic grasping have been purified, Buddha nature will reveal itself, because its nature transcends birth and death. That is the ultimate truth. On the relative level, karma, cause and effect, is unfailing. The ultimate truth teaches emptiness, the empty nature of self and other. That samsara in reality does not really exist. And so that also is called the union of the two truths. It is the state of the Buddha Vajradhara. So it is just the body that circles in samsara. We have to think, how does one wander in samsara? We learn about that when we are introduced to the 4 thoughts that turn the mind when we first enter the path of Dharma, where we learn about the difficulty of finding a precious human body. We learn about death and impermanence, karma, and so forth. So these teachings explain the nature of samsara, as well as the nature of the pure state of Buddhahood.
There are little things that are doctor, doctor can't eat it. That you must talk, you mong the Jumdre Kitchik Sabaranzo in Sabaranzo, Samba Numa talk, Tiranzo, Latinita, Dwar Toss Town, the same jet you might jet exon, jet the state you mokon in a neka teacher, they got teacher, Tata was a charge in the one. Don't that when we need to Latin in your marriage. Yena, 내가 끼지죠. 동그라들이 대체 유보의 끼뉴만 봐다. 로티왕의 소송들이 다 그래서 저러고요래. 도담 대체 유보의 산속생으로 사진을 저러고래. 대라들 내가 끼지죠. 아마도 예리사리 매시. 대체 꼭 하고 예리사리 매시. 다양한 저 같은 라수인데 라제지 망보지 시행도상 대산들이 탐지 소다만 속도 따고는 농촌도요래 대외들이 이거 뭐 좋다 호화를 뭐 좋래 제 가리 그들 오늘하고 이거 다다란 줄라 이거 때문지 대응이 되게 레사로 레소소소 달리 가리 싹도 되네 다사로 따는 이 삶에서 되니까 다디 뒤점편도 다다사요 얘기죠. 그래서 그것도 레점제 차심 장어 때는 그 레점제 시바들더니 다다다디 레직상은 되는 제가 이제 나온 거요래. 남인진제지 좀 추인지제지 기브세버제지 대망봉을 야 들이지 남인진제가 전진제가 세바드는 용아는 남인진제를 데르티는게 제버리 좀 빼나 남인진제가 빼나 Shedang Tavan, Shedang Namamiba Telatini, Ta Shedang Sile, Tata Lugo, Suko, Dom de la Sovareta, Telatini, Nyavake, Nyavak Ramjin, Shedang de Gina, Dajin, dancing to Ombe, Telatini, Yavan de Shedang Ranch, Show, Tata to draw so chatting, Tassan, to Dirtak, the Paratatan, Tela to so chakachi, you which you say go. Seguma, Masera Tabeva, some ninja you want to say go chat, Caris, so secret. Oh, Territory, the Depatia Messiah gave up some watches of Thomas Unity. Tell the Depatia Messiah, new one bag, you have a lay son, dear Raga to chut down yours. Oh, chut down yours. Oh. 강리 다다리 예판도 받다나 이제라니 셈이 제축바 차대요래 나진이 요매 띵은이 좀 돼 가타니 요래 그래서 다 이스 통을 들이 나를 차는 이는 당니 나진이 좀 들이 차다니 제 레사는 들이 세상은 저 세상을 다투 로아를 좀 저거 거기 저거 그러잖아 내가 진지 저들이 세상을 저거 냐라 Senaga took a yada, Tamuga took a thirdo, Tritang, Majaka took a la, Dochaga took a me, Tridocha, Chedang, Tamung, Maja, Tazo took a lamini, Satalamini on Jevayori, the million of Tataramji, Teta in water to the midi, Chatan Yokari, then go straight down, oh, that take a joy. Tele gelatine, Chilam Tamti, Jelison, Sanjay, Turan, Tela Lud, the king you boy, you didn't call and cook with the Tita, Gelatin, don't control it. Telatin Sanjay, Monangel, Deva, Tang, David Jatan, the Macha. That Deva, the country, Dogna, David Jotok over it. David Jokari, Nekakodo de Mata, Sanchok Semirate, or some other injury. Sanchok same day, they young tea Tata under him. The Dukim Peter Tata Sayo is Tata Tamian, Lake getting your so yori. They were doing community. Community, Cheddar on the Tonches or no so. They Tonchi check the house and tell Cheddar on the Catena Carrier. Pero Sata, she was so charming, the charming Bocasina to draw away, dead away. Me, Nani, Tamati, dinner. Samba, Sava, Sambo, Chuba, Samba, they made Jabor one go. That didn't make them generally gave it in. That gave you, tell us about giving them the Ranga Tesabjiki, Lam Shelty Tabjiki, Lam Pastum, Tesabjiki, Tedder, Tesabjiki, just they are charity. They didn't meet something that something really shabby. But Saba sent me, but I didn't shab the oh, Tata Ranag, legend is Tata, Deva Gora, Deva just Deva the Deva just at them, but the Toma in Italy, dancing in your something, Zipping Lord the zones. Zipping Lord the zones, give Kari, Cheddar on Tonchitama zones, Tata legend de Hakona. Mamma, the Tata reader to use it. Tata Ranag leader, Deva Dongi Kari. They're trashing to attack it. Oh, my doggy tendo, carry. So now, so she love me dogs. From down young woman dogs. Oh, Camry, that's the book. Oh, my carry, the carry, Cassidian, not so much dogs. That's in our age. Oh, tell you more real, tell us, Selene, what that making Naman sorry. Pamachuba, they were doing to Pamari, Casso. Tita leg shebare, telling was a book at Amir, Mamma tipped Tata Lula to Tata to the tea that any time I Hama Carissa later, so they took the tongue there. Julam tip up how much you were burning at the Kaka chant to take a tally, chas over it.
So it is the body that wanders in the 6 realms of samsara, depending on which of the 6 afflictive emotions are predominant. Thigden Sumgen said also that the karmic fruition is the manifestation of one's momentary thoughts. So the 6 realms of samsara are the manifestation of the 6 afflictive emotions. The mind itself is Buddha nature. We call it the single basis. And that remains as it is, but then the various conditions temporarily change. So for example, also when we recite different rituals, we speak about gods and demons, and then we say on the ultimate level there are no gods and demons. But then temporarily, we speak about gods and demons because temporarily conditions change. Temporarily, we are under the control by the condition of the afflictive emotions. And that leads to the manifestation of a so-called demon. Or also as a quality of bodhicitta, a god or a deity appears, a Buddha manifestation. So on the relative level, temporarily, conditions bring about different changes. But then still, even that is the case, there are no real other gods and demons aside from within one's own mind. So that is often difficult to understand for people because they say, well, but you do say that there's all these gods and demons, there's so many classifications and so on. And so that is what we call partial understanding, which also leads to some confusion. So what we need to understand is that samsara is a manifestation of the 6 afflictive emotions. And these afflictive emotions should be recognized not without outside of ourselves, but within ourselves, in our own mind stream. And recognizing the afflictions in our own mind stream, we need to understand how we accumulate karma with these afflictive emotions. So really think about that. Then it says in the next verse, in the Gongchik, the increase and decrease of time can happen even now. So even in this lifetime. So what it means is that so when you accumulate karma, then karma ripens in different ways. It is said that it ripens in 4 different ways. So there is the result of full maturation, the result corresponding to the cause, the proliferating result, and the dominating result. For example, an example of the result of full maturation is that when one engages in action with a mind of hatred, then that leads to the full maturation of being born in hell. So when there's hatred in the mind, then we harm others, we kill others, we abuse others. And that naturally creates the hell realms. So on the basis of perceiving self and other, one mainly is hostile against others. That is the nature of hatred or anger. And then that naturally, the character, the quality of anger creates hell. For example, in the animal realm, manifestations of that are scorpions or poisonous snakes and so on. And when we see them, often we have no choice but to kill them, even if we do it with love and compassion. But what is actually happening is that they're really karmically really killing themselves. The Buddha said, "Do not commit any wrong, perfectly practice virtue." He said that in the very beginning. So do not commit any wrong means to not engage in negative action with body and speech that are motivated by afflictive emotions. Because if you engage in such wrong action, it is wrong because it will fall back upon yourself. And that is because the basis of our mind is one and the same. So when you hurt others, since your mind is one with others, you're really hurting yourself. There are no self and other. So not recognizing that, we are attached to ourselves, our own interest, and have an aversion against others. And so we accumulate negative karma in this way. We also say that the 6 realms of samsara are durkus or nirmanakayas. For example, the hell beings are durkus of hatred, or the hungry spirits are durkus of greed. The animals are durkus of ignorance. The gods are durkus of pride. The humans are durkus of attachment. And the jealous gods are durkus of jealousy. And also the gods and the jealous gods are very connected to each other. And also we can see the suffering of each of those 6 realms in this human world itself. It is all represented. So when the Buddha taught, he said, all phenomena arise from causes. So therefore, create the right causes. So the reason why you still have to wander in samsara, even though you do possess Buddha nature, is because of these causes. All the Buddhas therefore pray, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. If you want to create happiness, you have to create the causes of happiness. And on the relative level, that means to cultivate bodhicitta, a mind of love and compassion. So the increase and decrease of time can happen even now. So meaning that whatever happiness and suffering you experience right now in this lifetime is the result of anything that you have done in the past. And it is now coming back to you. It says here in the next verse, results arise mainly as the phenomenon experienced in this very life. And so, for example, if you think about birds, some birds can live together in flocks of hundreds and thousands peacefully. There's also human beings who can do that. Human beings have good hearts, excellent activity, excellent conduct, treat others with kindness, and they can coexist peacefully. Or, for example, the excellent conduct of a spiritual friend, a spiritual master, who are able to help others, guide them on the path with great wisdom. So that is also the result of a positive state of mind. So if somebody cultivates love, immeasurable love, then the result of that naturally is wisdom will arise, and you know how to benefit others. So if you now develop trust in the workings of karma, if you want to experience happiness, you have to create the causes of happiness. And what we need to understand here first is that the cause of happiness is to eliminate self-grasping. And the antidote to self-grasping is the altruistic mind. It is that if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body. If you really analyze all the experiences of happiness and suffering in your life, you can always trace it back to something that was done in the past. For example, if you think, I suffer so much all the time, for example, I'm not so intelligent and I have a hard time learning things. So why is that? That is the result of karma created with ignorance. Or if you think that wherever I go, no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I work, I am never able to make any money. I can't get rich. And that is the result of greed or stinginess. So in this way you can understand, by looking at your own experience, which afflictive emotion has created each of these experiences. For example, even in a single family, if parents have 2 children, each of these children may turn out completely differently, may experience different levels of happiness and suffering. And that is because of their own individual karma. And that is why in Tibet we say that if you wish what you did in the past, then look at your present body, your present experience in life. So you can clearly see, if you want to know your past life, you can clearly see it by looking at the experiences of this life.
So that 这的人同学做用是他知道说让人了，第二的第二这个我告诉你的，老周讲你们都是，说到这考虑你们这个人去。我告诉你，你帮我查到那个是刚偷不弄的，他先那个这个人去。第一道是容易刚用那的长的搞的，三个错了有的，这三个错了有的。这个你摸了，这里在的，最近没得他大山有意思，那个几个女模谁东西的人这个，这里大的东西刚用呢，这你摸了不？身上的大体你摸了180，哦。但是呢，跑到什么州？人家的女模么州，你摸了3龙灯了，这过了3龙灯了，这里看见哦，他下地这他就人多的东西用了，别人拿啥的工业是用了，咚，你马不能查的，从老不能查的，这从人家去不甚至技术的生活有的，大家人是下地就可以了，哦，我说的汽油刚刚下地是怎么？下地是怎么赔个这些赔呢？他的下地就是这个赔到没赔你有的，赔到没赔你有的搞的，看些个这样我们那个来就来这啥课啊，哈过呢。当然这人嘛送是哦，大家人就说下的是，当然这嘛送别的啥子红上说下的上面这些了。我第来的这个上周，这是这个上周的，这个电他马上你就打起的那种了，这是让当时你打，打不去了3周前，打不去了说话，打这个就这么说话，到了这来的上都会有，看些朋友，这个朋友，这样我们来就这些吧，第一个人呢，这里打人个东西的脚都会有的，我被。打别啥个讲用呢？杨姐就老花钱的，这老花钱就做不了的。这上去这来的没给我的瞎花钱的。还是打咱们人来就没找人开门的，这样还是开门的来就没开门的，6少9把都有没的，这样还是开门的。这他们打这到上路当然，这让来搞的是这多用过的，这弄的用过的，来搞的这啥花钱。这用我这里在下地去了，别个有嘛嘞，在到老板这边了，那个来的用过的，来就别的啥个嘛，看送的，这到了这太阳了，同时做用的，到了他的等啥不的，让那个电话看人都电话看人的，哦，我老做这啥做，我没有啥么子差不多的，哦，没来拿啥没吧，旅游我做了，吃什么个这个的，哦，这老做个搞人没得去。那就不是这个人去，我告诉了桌上不，说了这东西吧，到底不，到底吧，这不是桌子，他是不是确认不桌上不东西吧，这东西，我这改个做，我讲嘛，如果讲是这个，这个养家的这个如果讲我都是，这的人同时说的来就这下课上，让个这头个，这上这个就是上周生活就讲了的，上周生活就让一个发生个就人把这种说话听让一个上周生活让用个有的，这用了的这不的下过了，这里他打开这个这个看嘛面了，你来说了这里门里来讨个有的，这里这种生活就了这里。这里节目那里边送了这里，当中苹果里把了，这门里到了送。马过了，拖着这拖过了，这过来的人个，这不我觉得这没有，如果了这里桌上不，东西不，车人不，这到拖过来，这里上地的其他的人忙活上这个这里他内陆的呢，这里前面内陆他现在到上从这老做完真的，这里下边过来，这里。他都上这个我他把他这个跑到什么找的，这到咱上这这个生活头里就会有的，这到哈过了这里他这的人同时说哦这的了，这种他妈哈过哦这里这这不搞的让生的东西，生的搞的哦用不生那这些哦 생란들이 그래서 다 막지발이 그래서 거기서 라는 놈이라 때들 뒤래를 다 셔도시를 다 먹게 줘 랑지가 요요래 그 당진들 해준이 마치는 대대 이걸 때 개왔죠 제시를 개왔죠 또 참여를 뭐 대목나는 제대로 넣어야 되는 성을 때 하자 그렇지 뭐 대래 때는 들리잖아 체들랑 내좀 된 것에 다시나 들때랑 그들이 저걸 거 하고 요래 대외를 출력세 요리도 되면 남가 요래시 출력 가래 말이지 전도적인 때를 필요한 거 아니 요래시 네 못하다 그래시 출력 따르면 이제 다 커버컨 다 란치고 그시하고 다 고바자도 사와도 좀 저거 요래 때 못하면다 그래 대대로 출력 용인이 바로 제발 대사 요래 대사들이 제대로 손짓 어디 손나들이 일찍 미지 출력시 봐서 싸치 보이가 네 하고 그래야지 대를 뒤집 편답다 따서요 출력을 때리다 그때 랑도 제기 올라 때 잡을 출력 나만 나서 그래 뒤 탐지를 랑도를 랑지 매반 직접 요 말이 대회는 대서로 다 짜시 버려야지 말 랑소랑 가도 거기죠 대양 때니 설렁하고 싸워도 남 샘쪽으로 샘로서 랑가도 가리 나고 사진 진피 쪽으로 다 베르데 가시가 돈이 쪽으로 요사리 다 제들 돈이 쪽으로 제거로 데리다다 랑게 단지도 마저도 돈이 남장 토야요 말이 답을 잘 본 좀 돼봐도 그 닥다진 돈들한테 돈 담고 내봐 산속심조를 뭐냐면은 산속심 되면 수장들이 나중에 셔두고 요 말이
So the results arise mainly as the phenomena experienced in this very life. So results may arise even in this life. So, for example, you might think that wherever I go, I do not have a lot of difficulties finding wealth. So why is that? That is the result of having practiced generosity. Or you might think that wherever I go, I cannot find wealth. I'm like a beggar. I can't find a job. And why is that? That is because of greed or stinginess. So whatever suffering you experience, the seed of this suffering, the cause of this suffering, is present within your mind. And so then the increase and decrease of time can happen even now is related to that. So basically these verses mean that the results of our sufferings are present within us right now. So the suffering that you experience is related to the afflictive emotion present in your mind right now. So for example, if you experience wealth and well-being, then why is that? It is because you have practiced generosity in the past. If you do not experience any wealth, if you suffer a lot and you're poor, then that is because you have not practiced generosity. The 6 paramitas are the antidote to the 6 afflictive emotions. So when we identify the afflictive emotion related to our suffering, we can apply the antidote of the 6 paramitas. Some people, they like to perform pujas, different ceremonies, to clear away their difficulties, for example, when they are sick or have other problems. But then also, we need to remember karma and karmic creditors. There are 3 different kinds of karmic creditors. There is those karmic creditors who come back to collect their karmic debt of us having abused them, beaten them, or mistreated them. So then there's these kind of karmic creditors. And secondly, there is those who come to take back the wealth that we owe them through stealing from us or robbing us and so forth. And then there is those karmic creditors who take our life, the karmic creditors whom we have killed and whose life we have taken in the past. So of course there is a benefit in having trust in the 3 jewels and performing certain ceremonies, pujas, but there is also 2 parts to it. It could benefit or it could not benefit, depending on one's own karma. So for example, if you're someone who has understood karma already in a previous life when this negative act was created. So for example, you killed an animal in a previous life and then you recognized this was wrong, I should not have done that, and then you say Om Benza Satu Hung, recite a mantra. So you regret that in your mind. You think about the suffering of that animal. And if you have such awareness, have had such awareness, then at least half of that negativity you created is purified. And then you still have the other half that still needs to be purified, and that is why you now experience difficulties. It's ripening now. But then because you already had this recognition in a previous lifetime, you regretted it, you supplicated to the 3 jewels, then right now, if you again cultivate bodhicitta and supplicate to the 3 jewels, this remaining karma can become purified. So in brief, in a past life, if you have understood karma, then even though you experience suffering right now, it can be changed. For example, even though you experience financial difficulties, someone might come along and help you out. And that is the result of having regretted or confessed negative deeds in previous lives. And then there is the other side. Some do not at all accept karma. They don't believe in karma. They don't believe in past and future lives and so on. And there's actually only one tradition in this world who does that. But in any case, if you don't believe in karma at all, then you have no awareness of having done anything wrong. And then the entire suffering completely ripens in this life and you have to experience the result. And then no puja, no ceremony will be of any help. So it depends on what kind of karma, how you have accumulated this karma in a previous life. So these verses here that we just mentioned are actually very profound, because we can understand through reflecting on them how everything that we experience now in this life is actually present in our mind. The cause of all experience is now present in our mind. For example, you think I am wealthy, or I have found a precious human body, I'm always healthy, I'm never sick, and so forth. That, for example, is the result of having practiced ethical discipline. Or if you find I have no financial difficulties, that's the result of generosity. Or if you have many good friends and a beautiful face and a long life, that's the result of having practiced patience. So really think about that, because then you will feel that you understand, for example, this is the result of patience, so now I need to cultivate even more patience. If you don't understand that, you will just think that this is all your own accomplishment, and you don't recognize that it's because of something you have actually done in the past. And then also, if you cultivate bodhicitta on your mind stream, then the 6 paramitas, like generosity and so forth, will naturally arise. They are like the natural radiance of bodhicitta. It is said that, for example, there are some people who don't have so much time to practice. If they just do a Nyingma retreat, it is said that only by doing one of those retreats, you create the cause for a precious human body. Because this Nyingma retreat is a practice of ethical discipline. And Milarepa also said that in order to extract the essence of this precious human existence, you have to practice ethical discipline. Or in other words, ethical discipline leads to the birth of a precious human being. And if you practice patience, you will experience good friends, good companions, a beautiful appearance, and a long life. And then there's also the paramitas of meditation and wisdom. So that is developed through practice, practicing shamatha and vipassana. So through these practices, we develop wisdom, which then ultimately leads to enlightenment. So all of these are the causes and results arising from our own mind stream. So it's important to analyze your own life, really look at all the different experiences that you have, the pleasant and the unpleasant experiences, and then recognize the causes of each of these experiences within your own mind. It all arises from your own mind. For example, if you think I'm so poor, then recognize, oh, that's because I have been greedy in the past. And then what have I done with greed? I have stolen the wealth of others. And because I thought I'm so poor, I have to take something. And now as a result, I'm poor again. Actually, someone who doesn't understand karma, they will naturally engage in the 10 non-virtuous actions. Actually, the aspiration prayer of birth in Sukhavati by Garchen Rinpoche is an excellent prayer you should read all the time because it explains the benefits of the 10 virtuous practices and the faults of the 10 non-virtuous practices. And if you understand these, then you can apply them to your own life experiences. And so it is very important to have such a path. As you mentioned before, if you follow any religion, any spiritual path, you are on the road, like you're on a car and you know where you're going. But if you have no path at all, then you're wandering around in the wilderness without any direction, not knowing where to go. So, like an ant, for example, the ants just run around busily, not knowing where to go. So that's the difference between having or not having a religion. And we can see the effects of our actions in our life experience. If you think in this way, you can really understand the preciousness of the Holy Dharma. Through the Dharma, we begin to understand what to do and what not to do, what is virtuous and what is non-virtuous, what leads to happiness and suffering. And there are many different religions in the world, and there is not a single one of them that does not teach a path of what to do and what to abandon. And so recognize these religions as very precious, thinking that I need a direction, I need a path. Because of everything that we do with body, speech, and mind, the mind is most important. And from the Buddhist perspective, that means that altruism is most important. For some practitioners, emptiness is more important, but in reality, if you do not eliminate self-grasping, you cannot truly realize emptiness. So without bodhicitta, there is actually no one will be able to eliminate self-grasping. And as long as there is self-grasping, there is no way to actually realize emptiness.
소소라는 들이 다다다 좀제 전도 셈나 좀나 들이 다다다다랑 통주데 들조는 주발만이 좀 가시 비도 현도 야 들조 가시 뒤에서 조지 주고 내야도 그냥 소차탐제 가시 칼 포터바 토바미만 도서가 뒤소랑 뒤저데 강해서 뒤직뒤 코로 사와 있는 양들이 잡수 좋아서 세집어 마시는 라지기 이는 피바데 대회 코블에 가는 망보요래 뒤 탑지 자사소리 뒤를 만나러 봐더니 소소로 들어오는 같이 남파로 토바미만 줬다봐 들이 다 가서 칼라가 이제 토토바 카지르들이 서울이야 돈이 좀 살아 돈만이 들이 따라람들이 소차 이제 다 그래 뭐 많아서 뭐 사들마들이 고마야 야면서 받대 놓고 다 소차를 양당양도 싸는 다 뜨먹도 단진이 하자 쳐서 나든지 된다 그랬지 다 속도 살짝 요래 들이 대서로 돌들이 다 사지도 내대 요래 들이면은 배를 잠시는 소차 쳐버리래 소차 쳐잡는 사회 빼대다 그래 소자를 동의가 동의되는 때라면도 뒤 체벌지 그래도 저 체벌이 체들은 손주도 오는 뒤는 시랍을 뒤는 이제 뒤산 중간에 벨리 저기 한국 사와 탐지는 가려나 제 탐지 피바드 디어 랑상 중에 체들은 손주도 오죠 저 세부 체벌들이 시랍 니게를 뒤는 콜사와나니 피바드 데베사와 탐지를 대마타지들은 그죠 누구죠 양도양한테 딱 땅이요 그 문을 보자 톱나 양 매리 나나들이 도로나 게도 해놓은 거와 저기 가시는 로바 가시는 그 미식발 잡아 매야고 되는 말 농해만 본도 대사비가래 딸 얘기 제발해야지 뒤는 뉴먼과 셰치와 다디 셰치와 자 제삼제 셰치와 셰랍 셰치와 대걸 안한 것들이 태들은 도시도 송송 때때 도시 저도 좀 제일 싸움 싸움제 때다 딱게 땅 저도 딱해서 이제 가리리 ben 소착하려 나가 토과비만 좋고 요래 대간에 이제 대간에 다다 소다 탑지게 남도 저거 뭐다 저거 요래 배 대탐지 조합고 탑지게 피부사와 코나 좀 저거 요래 대다 탑지게 세비고 하고 말이지 같이 생기봐 요제 같이 생기면 요물 생분이 하고 뭐니 대답은 제가 만날 바들이 체들은 도시도 안 되는데 뒤져서 갈다 생분하는 연구와 하고는 너는 생분은 다 생분을 피마다 내가 서로 살로 땅이 나 쏘지를 피마다 되어서 양 계산 쏘거든 양 살로 땅이 요래 같이 은이 그냥 탁발에도 인피 콜라 삼때 내가 사족스고 다음에 가보리데 연양때 너는 소남래 소남 절송송을 저기 송거 소남시 바까리 다 삼세래데 비샵 되게 레가레스나 되다 다다니도 계속 가는 데를 주송 송을 대답이 때는 되지 다다 체들은 통치도 삼지 딱게 땅 상롱동 저가래 동의지 동의 저서 가리래 가리시를 송을 내와리 내와 저 가리시를 통고는 제사는 들지 이송을 다들 때는 각바에 각 나와 있는 예수 상지에게 삼지에게 예리 나와리시 각바들 나한테 뭐 예리 각바지 그 가일까지 줄 동의 고요 말이 동의 고면은 들이 다줄 나디 가요 동의 저서 뉴모가 톡이 좀 고요래 나디 가요 네가 나디 고요래 또 소차 네가 고요래 대회는 각바에 각 나와 있는 거는 너는 진피가 살로들 쪼가탐이 ram지가 나와래 내가 고요래 되레지 나 지지로 쪼지에 사와탐지 ram지가 가와대 딱 각바에가 나와 있는데 제가 같이 사지 제발에 사지 가리 제발 사지 시합지 람지 뛰네 내가 소소 뛰어를 맞아 대대비 파선 제와다 아선제는 양당에도 고하는 하장 피부도 서서라나 피송 주로 나베들 싸는 땅나 그래서 빈살이
So the results can be experienced in this very life. So why is it that I keep mentioning this over and over again? And it's because this is also how I myself reflect when I reflect on karma. When I reflect on karma, I apply everything I see to my own mind, the afflictive emotions, and so on. For example, when I look at animals, there's different kinds of animals. They're not all the same. There are some animals who experience a lot of suffering and some who experience much more happiness. For example, there are some with wings who can fly unobstructedly. And then there's others who have no legs even, can't even walk. So that is because of the causes that they have created, the merit. So even if one engages in ordinary worldly activity without knowing anything about the refuge and so forth, if one engages in samsaric activity with a positive mind, then still there are many people and beings who create a lot of benefit and happiness. So whenever a virtuous cause is created, even if it is not in the context of the Dharma, the result will ripen unmistakably. for example, like a bird that can fly unobstructedly in the sky. Whereas there are some animals who are constantly hiding under the ground, and the moment they come up, so another animal comes along and eats them. There's like these worms, for example, they can't even walk without any legs. So think about all these differences over and over again. So why is that? Why do they appear that way? It is because of the karma of ignorance, because ignorance and self-grasping are so strong, and that leads to a body like that. Or there is some animals in the oceans that are so large and fat they can't even move, and then other animals come, the hundreds and thousands of little microorganisms then come and they eat that larger animal alive. And then of course they suffer a lot. So there are so many different causes leading to many different results. We can see it all around us. So if someone possesses some wisdom and even the slightest compassion, even if they engage in just worldly activities, they create a lot of benefit and happiness. And the results of that can be seen right now in this lifetime. So in this way, this is how I analyze things around me over and over again. Or when I think about precious human beings, they are not all the same. There are some human beings who suffer just like an animal. Some who constantly experience suffering, and then there are others who experience more well-being. That they are not all the same. So why is that? It is because of karma. Some humans experience more suffering because of karma created with greater self-grasping and afflictive emotions. And then the opposite is a more positive experience coming from love and wisdom. So that is why we say that phenomena are experienced in this very life, or the results are experienced in this very life. And whatever is experienced, we can trace it back to the cause present in our mind. So examine all the experiences around you. For example, when you see a bird flying around unobstructedly and so on. Or you think about different mundane inventions like airplanes or cars. No, these are all beneficial activities. And maybe those who created these vehicles, maybe they didn't have the intention to benefit, or maybe some of them did. So that leads to different kinds of results. The cause is always within the mind. So there's some people who create these inventions with a selfish mind for their own profit. And then there's others who really do things for the sake of others, and so forth. So karma is very intricate, and you have to look at each different experience and really try to understand it, as Jigten Somgen says here. And so it all comes from merit or the lack of merit. And so what is merit? Merit is love, and from love arises wisdom. So whatever karma you create will lead to an unmistaken result. And we can see it all around us in this life. When you experience suffering, you should reflect, why is this happening? What is the cause of this? Or if things go well, why did I obtain this? Why does this happen? So it all comes from its causes. And then the next verse says, whatever is prohibited is inherently prohibited. Whatever is permitted is inherently permitted. So what is inherently permitted is the mind of love. What is inherently prohibited is self-grasping and the afflictive emotions. And why is that inherently prohibited? It is because you don't want to suffer. So if you don't want to suffer, then you have to let go of self-grasping. Because if you don't, from self-grasping arise the 6 afflictive emotions. And you want to be happy. Anyone wants to be happy, animals and so forth. So therefore, the altruistic mind of love is inherently permitted. Because we all want to be happy. We inherently want to be happy, and we do not want to suffer. So that is why self-clinging, selfishness is inherently prohibited. So some people may say that, oh, the Buddha made all these rules, so the Buddha is because the Buddha said so. But actually it's not like that, because the Buddha just showed us the path, and with his great wisdom showed us the results of certain actions. And so think about this again and again. It has helped me personally a lot, and that is why I feel that if you, Madame, or friends also reflect in this way, it might also help you.
동대 하자 이제 오 사지 주력 서서 니 쪽은 니 쪽을 뭐 돈다는 거니 라는 게들이 라그 강가과티랑 때 등에 저 베스천들이 라지랑 가래지 오 내가 저기 상속세는 뭐지 삼티는 라지가 나와야 되고 대 시성은 들을까요 다 던져 또복 제 민바인소 아까는 들어도 먹죠. 또 먹지마 강이지. 지양하서 미 레좀데미 따따체대한테 네 조금 성당에 들 때다 또 먹었다 와서 들들이 라리다 와서 거요리 들들이 따따따 랑도 가요 맞지? 들이 셈 단디는 하시라 미뭐 코너 거의 맞아 요 말이 되는 다 좋으시는 되지 뒤뒤 다가리 속차 가시게 랑그 토고 랑사 마가 버사 버크들이 베테라서 봐 들이 마다 버그 발라트는 사람들이 속차 찍자 요마데 속차 가지들 랑가 버랑사 후세적으로 사가 듣바르지 대타왜 제는 대타가 또 먹을 해지 대라서는 들이 하장들이 레주고레스 대들이 다들 또 먹을 해지 들어서 들이 속차 로당만 거들이 대서 냐와 땡사고 그래서 요리지 다 됐던데 좀 되게 시바는 상무다는 들었다가 소소로 저는 내가 보는 거래 좀 되게 시 그럼 탐지를 딱 제던 속차 탐지를 딱 제던 저기 감들 야당한테 딱 제던 내가 그 등에 조당지 쌍로당한테 강이 요거도 없다는데 타톡 처리는 들이 생고 돌아대 생고 돌이들이 다 단지 돌아대 단지 지되는 거 나도 요미 딱 제던 들이다 단지 니니 보자가 오 주방 제대로는 거 자와 상속선인데 단지의 같이 총성나도 뒤쪽 시합 체요 요거리 들이 상속세들은 뭐저 늦게 노아르도 등에 들었더니 등에 무거워 들이 탐지 동에 저 실에 들이 다랑 동체 요리 좀 뒤에 딱 제던 근데 탐지 딱 제던 트럭과도 속차 차 탐지를 따면 타지 차와 탐지를 싸먹었다는 배 적용만 배 통을 적통 적으면 다들 그도 가라고 요리 배나 들어디 적되면 통을 가라도 타는 가라도 우저자가 속차 셔들 로드 되고 다들이 다들 로만 정통데 그 데이터를 때때다 다 다시 봐야 되리 올 데르서는 데들 오 샘쭉 봐야지 레데다 다들 렉시 봐야지 다들 레미로 제이는 거나 남의 저저 왕거 집에 세번 저서 셰히요래 되게 걸 딱지 당나 들이 좀 뒤에 하시 창진 땅서 봐들이 다다 통담대 마마도 그 봐들이 단디니 오늘 좀 뒤에 하저 찾아서 와도 싫어 그렇지 뭐요래 들이 미쳤다 보고 봐 이리 좀 뒤에 마시래 가리 마시래 좀 뒤에 레좀 뒤에 마시 봐래
And so what is prohibited is inherently prohibited, and what is permitted is inherently permitted. And so some may say that there's certain religions kind of tell you what to do, you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, and so on. But here we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about what is inherently permitted or prohibited. And inherently, because it's related to our mind, whatever leads to suffering is inherently prohibited. Whatever leads to happiness, like love, is inherently permitted. Then the next verse says, since delusion is greater among animals, their realm is lower. So birth as an animal is the result of ignorance. Ignorance means that one does not believe in karma and one denies past and future lives and so on, and all one cares about is just the happiness of this life. So these are views we call barbarian views that have no other interest than themselves and this lifetime. They're not interested in what needs to be done, what should be given up, and so on. There are those who mainly think about themselves and who are afflicted just all the time. And that leads to birth as an animal. And for example, there are some animals where the mother even eats her own child. And actually, normally we say that it is not possible for a mother not to love her child. But then there are some animals who even eat their own children, maybe like scorpions. And that is because the force of delusion, of ignorance, is extremely powerful, very profound, meaning that once one is born as an animal, one will not be liberated for a very long time. It is a very profound obstruction, even more profound than in the hell realms. So reflect on the workings of karma in this way. If you think in this way, then it will really affect your life positively. If you understand karma, you will analyze everything around you, the animals that you see and everything in the world, your own experiences, how the world functions, everybody else's experiences, and so forth. It will always come back to the mind. You will always trace it back to self-grasping if there is suffering. And when you understand that, you will realize that what is the antidote to that? Then you remember the quote that said, the 84,000 Dharma teachings are included within bodhicitta. The lesser you are self-grasping, the greater will be your wisdom. The more bodhicitta will arise. And that is what clears away all the suffering of the 6 realms of samsara. So investigate, analyze karma in this way, especially when you look at an animal. Really think about the animals, the larger animals, the smaller animals, even the most subtle animal, an animal you can't even see with your bare eyes. They're still animals and they still have a form and they still need food to eat, for example. They still suffer. And why do they appear this way? It is mainly because of self-grasping and the karma of ignorance. But still, our minds are one and the same. It is just that we have different karmas. We have created different karmas that ripen in different ways. We have said karma ripens in 4 different ways. The result of full maturation, the result corresponding to the cause, the dominating result, and the proliferating result. Think about karma in this way and really analyze it in a very subtle way until we have realized the ultimate truth. There is self-grasping. And as long as there is self-grasping, it is very important to understand the fine workings of karma, cause and effect. So delusion is greater among animals, or ignorance is greater among animals, and that is why their realm is lower. So this delusion or ignorance is what that in essence is an ignorance of karma, cause and effect.
그래서 그거 깎아야 나와 해낭시가 뒤 타락 강리지. 다음 책제 요래. 취지 잡은 로아 쩔게 성에 깎아다 나와 당시 취지 잡어도 취지 잡어 가리. 샘들씩 좀 되리지. 혼대 이라고 하는지 샘들씩 좀 샘지가디 내리 샘은 내lok도는더니 내lok도는 치바 가는 매 금신은 전자 들씩 유모 코란에서는 따지도 나지 요니 정제들이 그래서 내가 거기 동네 거기 말 내가 거기 동네 내가 David just something is, looking just dancing is, that's a lens of doing a check the one. Oh, children, Roger, you cheer, Kashir, money. This little child, they are go what? Oh, they are going to just go it. They're monarchy. They were tongue, David just had them but churches. Tata Sosa, they are too they're judging yours. Joker, just I took some reason. The young son, there is so I took said the children, there is I took the children. This I took seven, this I took seven, I took Sanjay. Oh, that's I took some GB Lord, the Sanjay Gusseries, Lama and Gusseries, Tata Daddy. Don't in the song, Lama Sanchok so the song Sanchok Semin Lavatory Sanji made Pit our Hako Teperi, the Rangi, David Dongija, Kakachina. This the way Gongchik, not the way goes in such a young same the only the way Gongchik Mary. There is someone down there. There is a hot of target of a Jumbi and Tartawadi. That it is. Should up with the same decision of Quran rate. Chukukotan Bolaquere, Dodgy Jan Laquere.
And after this quote of what is inherently permitted is what is permitted is inherently permitted, what is prohibited is inherently prohibited. It says that the king of Dharma, the king of Dharma is one's own mind. It is one's own Buddha nature. From this mind, all of samsara and nirvana arises. So we need to realize the nature of this mind. The omniscient Longchen Rabcham had said, aside from realizing the nature of your mind, there is no higher learning than that. So now we possess Buddha nature, but within that there is self-grasping. So Buddha nature is like the king of Dharma, but within that there is self-grasping. And therefore we want to experience happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. There's no one who doesn't want to be happy. So if you want to be happy, you need to create a cause of happiness, which is love. That's according to how it is explained in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. And then you don't want to suffer. There is no one who would say, I want to suffer. No one wants to suffer. Everyone shares that in common. So you need to avoid the causes of suffering. That is why the Buddhas all have prayed, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. So understand that it is all within your own mind. Look around, and if you find just the slightest happiness, that has a cause, and the cause is love. It is bodhicitta. If you understand this and keep thinking about this over and over again, then you will regard bodhicitta more and more precious. You will want to increase your bodhicitta. And a Buddha is nothing else but a manifestation of bodhicitta. So bodhicitta and altruism manifest as the Buddha and also manifest as the Guru. In the Drikung Kagyu supplication prayer of the fivefold path of Mahamudra, it says, I supplicate to bodhicitta, the actual Guru. There is actually no other Guru than bodhicitta. That is something we can understand. So therefore, if you don't want to experience suffering, avoid the causes of suffering and cultivate bodhicitta. Then as a result of that, ultimately you will realize the nature of your mind. And that is the Dharma King. It is your own Buddha nature. We also call it the Dharmakaya, Samantabhadra, or the Buddha Vajradhara.
대회는 드리다면서 사막에 뒤져서 드리가 산축샘표를 모치에 너는 책 담시 강의 되는 애들이 산축샘표 되는 애들이 산축샘표 강의 사이트다 시합을 차차돼요래 산축샘을 시합요래 이빙을 놓을 때는 시합요래 삼바를 뛰는 현재에서 또 삼바다 현재 송전되어서 삼바다 현재 송전되어 될 산축샘에서 그때 그치 뭐요래 들이들은 참적이 자시들이
We always recite this prayer where we say, may precious bodhicitta arise, and so on. And all the words that we hear in the teachings, it all comes down to bodhicitta. And a quality of bodhicitta is wisdom. So when bodhicitta and altruism arise, wisdom will naturally arise. When love arises, compassion will naturally arise. The union of love and compassion becomes bodhicitta. That is very important. So today I will stop the teachings here. Dashidelek.
Om Devare 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 Shri Avibari Sankalong La Tashi Dile